When you own 3,000 acres of Texas date, you stop jumping at every rustle in the brush. Between the mesquite thickets, wild hogs, rattlers, and the odd coyote with more attitude than sense, the land stays alive, loud in all the ways that matter. But that week was supposed to be quiet. I was Austin-bound for the Lone Star Agri Summit. 10 days of cutting-edge ranch tech, prize-winning cattle genetics, and enough barbecue diplomacy to grease every deal in the state. I left the ranch under the watch of Miller Security, a Frankenstein monster of drones, motion sensors, and trail cams my buddy Tyler and I rigged up last fall. The north gate was Fort Knox material, reinforced steel, RFID badges, the works. The south side? Nothing but dense woods and creek beds, untouched for months. Nobody came in that way. Nobody was stupid enough to try, not unless they had a death wish for thorns, snakes, or my late uncle's paranoia, which lived on in the form of hidden motion detectors nailed high in the oaks. I put Rick in charge of the A-strip and hit the road without a second thought, barely glancing at the tree line separating my land from Cedar Crest Ridge, the shining new subdivision next door. A place so polished, I half expected their HOA to mandate daily teeth brushing for the neighborhood squirrels. Their president, Chad Strongwell, was a kind of guy who handed out newsletters like they were gospel. I'd toss his last one in the trash without reading it. We weren't the same breed. I built fences. He built committees. So you can imagine my surprise when, on day 3 of the summit, my phone buzzed with an alert, movement detected. Zone S17. Probably just a deer, I figured. But when I pulled up the feed, my teeth ground hard enough to dust enamel. Not a deer. A bulldozer. A goddamn Caterpillar D6, piss yellow and roaring, carving a path through what used to be old-growth oaks near the South Creek. Behind it, work trucks, orange fencing, and a fresh gravel ramp that hadn't existed 2 days prior. My stomach twisted like it did before a firefight. I thumbed through the other feeds, S18, S19, S20, all lit up like a damn carnival. Earth movers, stakes, porta potties. This wasn't some drunk kid screwing around. This was a full-scale invasion. I called Tyler, Rick, and Jason. Saddle up. I'm flying home tonight. No questions. Just one reply. How many mags? I left the summit with cold ribs and a belly full of rage. As the plane climbed, I pulled up the satellite view. The bastards had cleared a 70-yard gash through my woods. A tent stood in the middle, flanked by a pop-up banner, future home of Cedar Crest Ridge Private Clubhouse. Son of a bitch. Chad Strongwell had apparently decided that since my southern fence was out of sight, it was up for grabs. Thought he could shave off a few dozen acres, slap down a helipad for his country club cronies, and nobody would notice. Well, now he had my undivided attention. I texted the sheriff. Need a unit on standby in 48. Then my lawyer, pull every deed, every survey, every line of date we own. As the clouds burned crimson outside my window, I cracked my knuckles. This was still Texas. And out here, we don't ask permission to take back what's ours. We touched down at 0200, wheels bouncing on my dirt strip hard enough to rattle teeth. Jason waited by the Jeep, headlights cutting through the dark. He tossed me a thermos of tar black coffee. No words. We'd done this dance before, Fallujah, Mosul. But this was personal. Rick's voice crackled over the radio. They poured concrete, Cody, 16 workers, steel beams, plumbing stacks. I clenched the roll bar. Still our land. 80 yards past the line. South Oaks on mulch. We geared up at the armory, a glorified tool shed with an attitude. Ours slung, sidearm strapped, drone humming in Jason's grip. Tyler synced the tablet to our perimeter grid. Sunrise wasn't far. Time to give these trespassers a proper Texas welcome. We rolled in at first light, 4 pissed-off vets in a dust-caked Wrangler, badges visible, weapons slung but obvious. The road they cut through my woods was fresh, tire tracks deep enough to leave scars. The clearing was worse than I'd imagined. Steel skeletons rising from raw earth, workers swarming like ants on a carcass. Trailers, generators, a whole damn job site, on my dirt. I parked 30 feet out and stepped down. A kid in a hard hat froze mid-swing. Morning. I called, calm as a coiled rattler. Who gave you all the green light to build on private land? His walkie-talkie crackled. Rick drove a survey stake into the bulldozer's path. County line 74 yards back. You're trespassing. A suit burst from the trailer. Khakis, shades, a haircut that screamed, I bill by the hour. I'm Kevin Barnes, site manager. We got permits filed with Cedar Crest. Cedar Crest got no jurisdiction here. I cut in. This is Cody Miller's land. Deeds are filed. Want to see 'em? Jason's drone buzzed overhead, capturing every inch of their illegal playground. Kevin swallowed. Let me call Mr. Strongwell. You've got 10 minutes, I said. Then I called the sheriff. And I did, loud enough for Kevin to hear every word. Lenny, got a trespassing situation. Illegal construction, possible dumping. Sending a unit. 20 minutes, Sheriff Harper grunted. Don't shoot anybody. No promises. By then, the crew was scattering. One guy filmed us from behind cement bags. Another tried to sneak a bobcat toward the trees like it had erased 3 days of theft. Kevin's phone rang. He hissed into it. Hold position. It's an easement issue. Too late. Sheriff Harper's cruiser rolled in, light slicing through the dust. He took one look at us, then at Kevin. You in charge here? Asterisk, asterisk. Kevin hesitated. I'm the site manager. Got a county permit? Sheriff Harper asked. No, but... Then you're under arrest for unlawful construction and criminal trespass. Step over here. The deputy cuffed him right in front of the porta potty. I almost felt bad. Almost. 2 more guys got nabbed trying to bolt in a work van. They'd be processed later, just more paperwork for the county. I walked to the center of the clearing, where my grandfather had planted the first live oak that started this grove. Now, just mud and rebar. Pack it up, I told the remaining crew. This project's dead. No shouting, no grand speech. Just silence as they shuffled off, heads down, like kids caught stealing. The Texas wind kicked up dust, swirling over the wreckage of Chad Strongwell's pipe dream. 2 days later, I sat in a conference room with Gina Horton, my attorney. The place smelled like lemon disinfectant and old legal briefs. Aerial photos, deeds, and topo maps older than my boots covered the table. Gina tapped a highlighted section of Cedar Crest development plan. See this, she said. They marked your land as undeveloped municipal green space. I frowned. Municipal? My family's owned it since Eisenhower was president. Exactly. She flipped a page. Strongwell submitted this to the planning committee last quarter. Claimed it was vacant surplus from the original plat. His buddies on the zoning board rubber-stamped it. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. So he figured if he poured concrete fast enough, it'd be a done deal. Bingo. Gina smirked. Picked the wrong rancher. By noon, we'd filed suit against Cedar Crest Ridge HOA and Chad personally, trespassing, unlawful construction, environmental destruction. Gina attacked on punitive damages, $650,000. Chad's response? A countersuit, of course. Claimed the boundary was ambiguous. His crew acted in good faith, and I'd use intimidation tactic to block a community-benefiting project. Community, my ass. The hearing was set in 48 hours. 3rd floor of the county courthouse, air conditioning humming like a dying refrigerator. Chad strutted in wearing a Navy suit 2 sizes too small for his ego, flanked by 3 Austin lawyers with names like they belonged on a country club roster. Didn't even glance my way. Gina opened with a surgical strike. Satellite images, timestamp camera stills, GPS logs from the bulldozer, all proving the crew was 73 yards inside my line. Then she dropped the drone footage. On the courtroom monitor, we watched the worker carve into my oaks with a chainsaw. No sound needed. The arrogance was in every swing. One of Chad's suits tried arguing implied easement due to unclaimed terrain. Gina shut him down. No easement was filed, requested, or granted. This isn't a mistake. It's theft. Judge Owens, a silver-haired woman with the patience of a glacier, turned to Chad. Did you authorize construction here? I approved surveys, he stammered, based on my teams. Did you verify ownership? Chad's throat bobbed. I trusted my people. I see. The judge's silence was louder than a gavel. The ruling landed by dusk. Full stop to all development. $650,000 in damages, trespassing, ecological harm, legal fees. Restoration ordered. Replant trees, rehab soil, rip out every inch of infrastructure. 30-day deadline. Our fines climbed $5,000 per day. By week's end, Cedar Crest residents erupted. Their HOA Jews had bankrolled an illegal luxury spa on stolen land. Lawsuits piled up. Board members quit. Chad? He slithered off, for now. Then the real game started. First, a flicker on my security feed. RFID anomaly. Northgate. 3 failed badge swipes in 12 minutes. The camera feed? Static. That line was buried. It didn't just glitch. Tyler found a junction box gutted, wires stripped, fingerprints smeared like a taunt. We armored it with steel. I didn't call the sheriff. Maybe kids. Then my cattle started dropping. 6 head. No wounds. No struggle. Just corpses by the south paddock. Doc Hernandez ran talk screens. Triazine compound, she said, jaw tight. Agricultural grade poison. Poured straight into their water. This wasn't an accident. That's when I stopped thinking in lawsuits. This was a declaration of war. I filed a report. Deputies took notes, promised to look into it. We both knew how that'd go. So I did what I should have done months ago. I activated Phase Delta. Lock it down. Full protocol. Thermal drones. Passive IR tripwires. Pressure plates. Low light cams. The kind of setup you'd use if you expected a coyote to come back smarter. Or in this case, a man with a grudge. Jason and Rick beefed up the perimeter, cursing under their breath but working with a focus of men who knew what was coming. Motion-activated floods. GPS trackers on the feed bins. The old ground sensors near the southern creek, silent for months, hummed back to life. Every alert fed to a single encrypted tablet bolted to my kitchen wall. Then we waited. It took 4 nights. 2:03 a.m. The southern grid lit up. Multiple contacts. Moving slow. Methodical. Not wildlife. Tyler flipped to infrared. 3 heat signatures. 2 broad-shouldered, 1 leaner. They cut through the same breach where Chad's bulldozers had torn in weeks before, now overgrown and barricaded. One carried something heavy in a duffel. We watched in silence. They weren't lost. They weren't drunk. They weren't kids. They reached the camera tower. One pulled out a crowbar. Then hell opened its eyes. Tyler hit the floods. White light drowned the clearing. The men froze like deer in a scope. One turned, straight into the lens. Chad Strongwell. No tailored suit now. Just a hoodie, work boots, and a jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. The other 2, later, would ID them through a private security database. Ex-contract guys. One had an assault charge. The other, arson. I thumbed the emergency call. Sheriff Harper rolled in 9 minutes flat. By the time his cruiser crunched gravel, I was already there, rifle slung, hands visible. Chad didn't run. Couldn't. Deputies cuffed all 3. The duffel held bolt cutters, spray paint, and 2 bottles of sulfuric acid. Intent wasn't just clear, it was signed in blood. Trespassing. Evidence tampering. Retaliation post-lawsuit. Chad stood under the lights, pale, lips pressed in. Not defiance now, just exposure. As they led him past, he glanced at me once. I didn't smile, didn't speak. Just watched as the ex-HOA president of Cedar Crest Ridge got stuffed into a squad car like a common thief. Because that's all he ever was. They held him 48 hours before bail. I expected the usual dance, lawyer theatrics, claims of misunderstanding, throwing his hired hands under the bus. But the footage didn't lie. Our cameras caught everything. The crowbar, the acid, the split-second hesitation at the tower, which had finally realized he dug his own grave. Gina and I met the DA next morning. Charges stacked like firewood. Criminal trespass, felony sabotage, attempted evidence destruction, agricultural poisoning, a federal livestock crime in Texas. We don't play. That last one, killing cattle, isn't vandalism. It's an attack on livelihood, on food supply. Hey, That buys you a one-way ticket to Huntsville. The DA was eager. Turns out, Chad had pissed off a judge years back strong-arming a rezoning deal. No allies left now. Meanwhile, Gina expanded our civil suit, $400K for sabotage, intimidation, dead livestock. Insurance backed us. Evidence was ironclad. Cedar Crest Board held an emergency meeting, suspended Chad, but the rot ran deeper. The Austin Ledger ran the headline. HOA president arrested for cattle poisoning, claimed land wasn't being used. Hell of an epitaph. At the arraignment, Chad's lawyer wheezed about mental distress, lapse in judgment, and, my favorite, excessive provocation by Mr. Miller. The judge didn't blink. Provocation? You're arguing that defending one property provoked chemical sabotage. Even the stenographer smirked. No bail reduction. Trial set. As they led Chad out, a woman I'd never met, Camille, from Cedar Crest Garden Club, slipped me a note. Thank you. We never knew how far he'd go. We were too scared to speak. The tide had turned. I wasn't the angry rancher anymore. I was the one who stood up. The trial smelled like burnt coffee and sweat. Reporters circled. I wore jeans, a button-down, boots polished but dusty. Gina said, look credible, but don't punch anyone. Chad? Charcoal suit. Expensive. Uncomfortable. His smirk had curdled into quiet panic. The prosecution opened with the footage, the trespass, the acid. The moment Chad looked into that thermal lens like a man realizing he'd stepped on a landmine. Jurors? 9 owned land or livestock. The DA, a wiry pit bull named Collins, put it plain. This isn't a zoning dispute. It's a pattern of calculated law-breaking by a man who thought money erased boundaries. Gina leaned over. His cooked. Witnesses rolled in like a storm. The vet who confirmed triazine poisoning. A soil scientist detailing ecological scars. A forensic tech who traced Chad's Cedar Ridge expansion, off-grid, folder on his laptop. His lawyer flailed. Footage is misleading. Chemicals weren't his. But the evidence wasn't just damning. It was a confession. Then the knockout punch. Alan Boyd, ex-HOA treasurer, took the stand. Chad pressured me to reclassify funds as development grants. When I refused, he said, I'll find someone who will. Nobody will care once the spa's built. The room didn't gasp. It froze. The judge's eyes went hawk-sharp. Verdict came next morning. Guilty. All counts. 12 years. 7 without parole. As the judge listed each charge, Chad stood stiff, his tailored suit now just a prison uniform waiting to happen. Mr. Strongwell, you didn't just break the law. You weaponized influence to make others complicit. You betrayed your community. Cuffs clicked. The visionary was led away. Cedar Crest rig collapsed. State froze their accounts. Court sold off HOA assets, gym, tennis courts, even a pretentious fountain. The spa site reverted to the county. Residents turned on each other. Camille told me they are dissolving the HOA. Too toxic to save. A month later, I stood at the southern clearing, watching a new sapling take root where Chad's concrete had been. Soil tested clean. Creek ran clear. Phase Delta's gear was boxed up. I kept a few cams. Habit, not fear. The land wasn't empty, just at peace. Gina had nudged me to write an op-ed for Landowner's Journal. I titled it, Build on Sand, You Sink. Build on Stolen Land, You Dig Your Own Cell. As shadows stretched long, Rick tuned the hangar's engine. Jason tweaked an ATV. Life moved on. Then I saw the U-Haul lumbering up Cedar Crest Old Road. A young couple followed in a Subaru. New neighbors. The man hammered a stake into the date. Private drive. No trespassing. I walked over. He wiped his hands. Nervous. Hope this is okay. GPS says the line starts here. We're fencing next week. I eyed the stake. Deed's clear. Triple checked. I nodded. Then you're doing it right. His wife waved. We heard stories. Some rancher with cameras caught a billionaire stealing land for a helipad. I shrugged. Sounds exaggerated. But true. Not by much. As I turned to leave, the man called out, Any advice for new landowners? I paused. Never mistake silence for surrender. And never trust a man who calls himself a visionary before showing you his property lines. They laugh. I didn't. Some lessons cost blood. Others just need a damn good fence.